Chapter 443, A Victory as Light as Lifting a Feather. Translator Dark Angel, Editor Kurisu. The spectators were all not very optimistic about Ling Han. Though every punch he threw carried a savage might, the one he had slain was only at the first layer of the spiritual pedestal tier, not a famed figure like Quicksword Yang Qi, whose name had long been tempered in blood and battle. Who knew how many spiritual pedestal cultivators had been cut down by that blade of his? Yang Qi. Kill him! Don't disappoint us! Among the crowd, some particularly ferocious characters had already begun to howl and roar without restraint. The reason they had paid a single origin crystal was precisely because they wanted to feast their eyes on a bloody fight. Yang Qi remained unmoved, only staring straight at Ling Han without a flicker. He said, "You're very strong. You're qualified to make me fight with my full ability." "Oh? Then are you qualified to make me attack with my full ability?" Ling Han asked with a smile. He truly hoped there existed someone within the spiritual pedestal tier who could press him to his utmost. Standing at the summit alone, he currently felt a loneliness like drifting snow and a solitude that seeped into the bones. "Watch my sword!" Yang Qi moved. Shua. At some unknown instant, a sword had already appeared in his hand. The blade was thin as a cicada's wing, and with a mere turn of his wrist, the sword tip had already arrived at Ling Han's left shoulder. It was shockingly fast indeed. It's too fast. He truly deserves the name Quicksword Yang Qi. It's over. Han Lin will be defeated in a single strike. The spectators cried out in excitement. However, the fact that Yang Qi aimed for Ling Han's left shoulder rather than his heart caused a large number to feel disappointed. It would have been a greater spectacle if that stab had taken his life. Ling Han merely smiled faintly. With a casual grab of his right hand, his opponent's thin sword had appeared in his grasp. Yang Qi's expression changed drastically. His sword was already this fast. How had the other party seized it? He hurriedly tried to draw it back, confident that the sharpness of his snowy winged sword would be enough to carve a serious wound into Ling Han's hand. Yet he instantly realized it was as if the snowy winged sword had sprouted roots within Ling Han's palm. He could not move it even the slightest bit. Ling Han slowly raised his left fist. Yang Qi understood clearly. If he abandoned his sword and retreated now, he could dodge this punch. But as a swordsman, he lived and died with his sword. He did not abandon it, only continuing to yank back with all his strength. Unfortunately, though he was at the 6th layer of the spiritual pedestal tier, his strength was not as great as Ling Han's. No matter what he did, he could not tear the sword from the other's grip. His gaze froze, and he chose instead to thrust the sword forward, intending to pierce straight through Ling Han's left shoulder. But that, too, was futile. After all, Yang Qi was still a true expert swordsman. With a loud shout, the sword tip actually burst forth with 7 streaks of sword towards Ling Han. At such close distance, how could one possibly dodge? Ling Han smiled, making no attempt to evade at all. He only tilted his head slightly, not allowing the sword chi to strike his eyes. Shua! 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 The 7 streaks of sword chi struck him solidly, yet because he had already formed the body of iron sheet, the toughness of his flesh was comparable to forging materials of the same level. The 7 streaks raked across him, and still did not leave behind even the slightest scratch. Pooh! At this sight, everyone choked. What kind of terrifying defense was this? Sword chi was formed from a fusion of the martial artist's own strength, his comprehension of sword arts, and the medium. Yang Qi was at the 6th layer of the spiritual pedestal tier. There was no need to elaborate. His personal strength had to be formidable. Moreover, since he could condense 7 streaks of sword chi, his understanding of sword arts was definitely not weak. Lastly, his snowy winged sword was a level 5 spirit tool, certainly not some flimsy weapon. Yet even with all of that, he still could not leave so much as a scratch on Ling Han. Is this guy even human? This guy's skin must be forged from precious metals, right? How can he be unmarked even after this kind of sword chi? This kind of defense is enough to make people lose all hope. Who could possibly break through such defense? Outside the arena, the spectators exclaimed in shock. Some even cupped their hands to their faces, their expressions filled with utter disbelief. But not everyone was the same. For example, Lu Yang, Jushuan and Yukun Lun all wore looks of eager anticipation. This sort of opponent was truly worth fighting. They all possessed extremely high confidence and believed themselves invincible when facing an opponent of the same cultivation level. Ling Han's fist shot out, and with a ping, it landed squarely on Yang Qi's face, instantly knocking him unconscious. The other party had borne no killing intent, so he had held back. Han Lin wins, the referee announced. After defeating Yang Qi, though Ling Han had not accumulated 10 consecutive victories, 1 hour had already elapsed, and he naturally obtained the qualification to enter the next round. He stepped down from the tournament stage and returned to the arena. He could clearly sense a considerable number of heated gazes fixed upon him, making him feel a faint ache. This was not pain of flesh, but pain of mind. The battle intent of Yang Junhao and the others was simply too fierce. Ling Han only smiled calmly. At present, who among the spiritual pedestal tier could threaten him? Unless the Sword Emperor or the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden appeared once more and returned to the spiritual pedestal tier, perhaps then they would be qualified to fight him. After all, he might be a monster, but so were the Sword Emperor and the others. The Heaven's Sword Sect was an ancient great sect with ties to the realm of gods. In his last life, only 7 people had managed to break through to the Heaven tier, which showed just how monstrous the Sword Emperor and the rest truly were. On the 3rd day, Ling Han did not appear at the great arena. He did not need to know what kind of elite cultivators stood among his future opponents, nor did he need to observe their strongest moves. In any case, whoever stood before him, he would only need to throw them out of the battle with a single punch. Another day passed, and the semifinals began. A total of 49 people had qualified for the semifinals. Thus, in the first round, 15 would automatically pass to the second round, and the remaining 34 would have to fight to decide who would be the final 17 to qualify for the next round. However, who would automatically pass was not decided by drawing lots, but rather by the Zhang clan. This was naturally unfair, but who asked them to be the organizer of this marriage tournament, holding absolute power to decide? Thus, the new and old first-place holders of the prodigy role such as Yu Kun Lun, Yang Jun, and Chao Qianyi passed without doubt. The same was true for young geniuses like Ling Han and Lu Yang. Obviously, the Zhang clan was optimistic about them and did not wish to see them eliminated in the first round. Unfortunately, the Zhang clan possessed only one key. If not, they did indeed have quite a number of young girls of marriageable age within their clan. The first round ended, and the main name list of 32 participants finally emerged. Though only men could participate in this marriage tournament, with a single glance at this name list, it was clear this was definitely an even more dazzling tournament than the Prodigy tournament this time. There were a considerable number of generations of the top 10 from the Prodigy role, and together with an extreme monster like Ling Han, there was another who had drawn public attention, yet no one knew what he looked like. That was because he wore a mask, and his build seemed quite small, obviously half a head shorter than the average person. His name was Zhang Shan, which was clearly a false name. Ling Han swept his gaze over him, certain that the other party was at the 9th layer of the spiritual pedestal tier. Moreover, he faintly carried an aura that Ling Han disliked. The second round of battles began. Ling Han was the 7th to fight, and his opponent was the white-robed sword king, Shen Zhongcheng. The previous few battles ended swiftly because the organizer had tried their utmost to arrange matchups where a very powerful participant faced a much weaker opponent. For the battle between Ling Han and Shen Zhongcheng, did they think Ling Han held an absolute advantage or an absolute disadvantage? Ling Han stepped onto the stage and nodded at Shen Zhongcheng. He held a slightly favorable impression of this swordsman. "Please," Shen Zhongcheng said solemnly. He had already seen Ling Han's moves before and knew the latter was extremely powerful. Ling Han brought his hands together and said, "Please." Shen Zhongcheng drew his sword. Chang, a brilliant sword flash, soared toward the heavens, and instantly an additional 7 streaks of sword chi appeared, all sweeping toward Ling Han. Ling Han acted simply and roughly. Facing the oncoming attack head-on, he raised his fist and unleashed a series of fierce punches. Ping, Peng peng. He fired 7 consecutive punches, not even circulating fist chi, and the sheer impact of his strike sent the long sword in Shen Zhong's hand flying out of his grasp, and with that, he was defeated. Chapter 444, Lu Yang's Strongest Move. Translator, Dark Angel Editor Kurisu Shenjiang Cheng, 29th on the last Prodigy roll. In this tournament, he managed to advance even further and squeeze into the top 10. He reached the 8th place this time. The name of the white-robed Sword King shook rivers and lakes and rang through all under heaven, and with him being merely in his early 20s, it was highly possible that he would become one of the leaders of the new generation of the North region. And it was precisely such a heaven-blessed genius that was thoroughly suppressed and beaten down with effortless ease by another. A consecutive chain of 7 fists was enough to topple him. What manner of notion was that? A stunned hush fell across the stands. How did the Winter Moon sect come to hide such a monstrous talent? Against an opponent of the same cultivation realm, 7 punches were enough to break Shenjiang Cheng. If he truly stepped through into the spiritual infant tier, then wouldn't that mean he could sweep aside all peers of the same level and stand unrivaled for an era? I've lost. Shenjiang Cheng coughed up blood. Though he had not suffered too serious an injury, he had still been struck with ruthless weight. Yet within his eyes, a blazing battle intent continued to burn. I will make you my aim, and one day I will definitely defeat you. I wish you good luck, Ling Han said with a smile. He wouldn't be wearing this identity for long, and when the days to come arrived, Shenjiang Cheng would have to seek an inexistent person for a battle. Just the thought of it made Ling Han feel a trace of pity for him. Shenjiang Cheng stared at Ling Han for a moment longer before finally turning around and leaving. Heavens, so powerful. If this fellow actually took part in the Prodigy tournament, he'd definitely have the ability to attempt seizing the first place. Perhaps he does not think the Prodigy role is important at all? That's right. I remember there was a powerful guy who previously delivered a palm strike worth 20 stars of the spiritual infant tier of battle prowess, but he absolutely disdained taking part. What, 20 stars of spiritual infant tier? Are you kidding me? Hey, you can make some casual inquiries. Who else doesn't know about that? With that kind of ability, there is of course no need for him to participate in the Prodigy tournament. That would practically be playing around with kids, and much too degrading. That may not be the case. That person said that he had used a spirit tool, which was what allowed him that kind of battle prowess. I too am more willing to believe that theory. Amid the clamoring discussions of the spectators, the bouts continued without pause. The senior elite cultivators had indeed not squandered their years of hard cultivation. Even if their battle prowess within the same cultivation realm was close to that of their opponents, their cultivation itself was deeper, and they had all reached the 9th layer of the spiritual pedestal tier. Furthermore, they had all lingered at this level for a period of time, tempering foundations to a terrifying degree. Thus, the senior elite cultivators all qualified for the next round, and only a very few rookies managed to display outstanding performance with even more powerful battle prowess. For example, Lu Yang, combined with his pet demonic beast, possessed astonishing battle prowess. There was also Yang Jun Hao. Clearly, this was his first time taking part in the Prodigy tournament, yet he had the peak cultivation of the 9th layer of the spiritual pedestal tier. They did not allow the mature generation to be the only outstanding people. In addition, there was also Ling Han and that masked man. The vigor of the younger generation was in no way inferior. The second round of battles concluded, and the third round swiftly began right after. This time, Ling Han's opponent was Lu Yang, ranked 2nd in the Prodigy role this year. Being able to defeat Zhuxuan someone whom many had expected to be the first place this year, there was of course no need to doubt Lu Yang had formidable battle prowess. However, the person he now faced was Ling Han, whose battle prowess had already surpassed the upper limits that could be measured within the spiritual pedestal tier. Plainly, he was fated for a tragic end. He and his pet demonic beast, Frost-Clouded Leopard, ascended the stage together and stood unyielding like a mountain. Lu Yang was a powerfully built man. In such bitter cold, He still wore a short robe, bearing his broad shoulders. It was as if they were forged from cliffstone. He seemed like he could topple mountains and split the earth with a casual punch. And the frost-clouded leopard looked even mightier. Its body stretched 3 meters long and rose to a height of 2 meters. It was wholly draped in snow-white fur like the finest satin. With every breath it exhaled, frost immediately formed in the surrounding cold air, then rustled down onto the stage. Han Lin, I cannot help but admit, you are the strongest opponent I have ever faced. Lu Yang fixed his gaze upon Ling Han. You are worthy of a full-effort battle from me. I'll use a powerful move that I had not used even in the Prodigy tournament some days ago. When those words fell, the spectators were all struck dumb. This man had already charged all the way to the second place of the Prodigy roll, and he actually had not used all of his strength. He still held a powerful move in reserve. Hiss, why hadn't he used it then? Could it be that he did not wish to take the position of first place? Wrong. Since it's the most powerful move, he will of course not use it easily. Otherwise, if others knew of it beforehand, they could stay on alert in advance. It's fine, even if he was ranked second in the Prodigy tournament. Anyways, the rankings would be rearranged again next year, and he would only need to show enough battle prowess, and he'd still be able to turn the tide around and get first place. Now, for the sake of the key to open up the 12 heaven mystery realms, he can no longer afford to care about that. Of course, as long as he could obtain the inheritance inside, he could possibly become an ultimate cultivator of the shattering void tier in future. Anyone would put their best effort in for that kind of reward. Yeah, I had initially thought that Han Lin was definitely going to win this battle, but there seems to be a bit of suspense for the end of this battle now. Hey, it'll be more exciting with a little suspense. Ling Han smiled and said, Oh, then I hope you will not be disappointed. Among all those of the same cultivation tier, he currently stood invincible and felt a chill solitude. If there was somebody who could give him some trouble, he would in fact be very pleased. As you wish, Lu Yang declared in a low, grim tone. He suddenly sprang forward and charged at Ling Han, his hands weaving into seals as he shouted, 3 lives, 3 destructions, life and death, reincarnation seal. Hong, his palms birthed uncountable tiny patterns that transformed into multiple plain, unadorned characters. Then they all shot forth and blanketed Ling Han. This truly was a little omnipresent, sealing off every path of retreat for him. Ling Han looked disappointed and asked, This is your strongest move? He thrust out a fist in the simplest manner, yet an endless shockwave of strength surged out. Ping, 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 and those characters were instantly shattered. Lu Yang's expression flickered with slight surprise. He had not imagined that one single move would defeat Ling Han, yet the fact that the latter had dispersed it so easily, so casually, still made him faintly shaken. However, he did not disappoint Ling Han, and immediately formed another seal and struck toward him again. Ling Han stood where he was, neither dodging nor ducking. He only tossed out another casual punch, neatly dispersing Lu Yang's attack. He yawned and said, Are you going to use your strongest move or not? If not, I'm going to throw you off the stage then. When those words reached their ears, the spectators all sucked in cold breath. Just how monstrous was the gap between the two of them, that Ling Na could speak like this. This man was so fierce and domineering. Was there anyone else who could stop him now? Lu Yang humphed and said, Since you want to see it so much, I shall let you experience it then. He pounced once more, and this time that leopard moved as well. In an instant, it raced to stand behind Ling Han. It opened its mouth and a white radiance shot out. It had not yet touched Ling Han's back, and yet the boundless iciness within its breath was already spreading in circles, instantly freezing Ling Han where he stood. Layer upon layer of ice appeared at a visible rate, sealing Ling Han within a 3 feet tall, 1 foot wide pillar of ice in the blink of an eye. However, after this move, light also drained from the frost-clouded leopard's eyes. It was as if it had lost a tremendous amount of weight from its body, and it could not help but collapse to the ground. So this was Lu Yang's strongest move. Clearly, the frost-clouded leopard could only unleash such a fearsome technique once within a short period of time. If it failed to freeze its opponent, Then the pet demonic beast would lose all ability to fight. Furthermore, the disciples of Beast Emperor sect relied heavily on the battle prowess of their pet demonic beast. If their pet demonic beast was unable to fight, then there would of course be a tremendous reduction in their battle prowess as well.